Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills, and today we are going to be talking about different strategies to bring up weak body parts. And does being in a calorie deficit mean you are losing only body fat? Good question, right? So, all right, so let's get started. Arman, NSP Nutrition Show, here we are. We welcome everybody who's watching and listening to the show. We appreciate you. And Armin, what made you talk about different strategies to bring up weak body parts?
Like for myself, most people have them. So it made a
Mm-hmm.
good, I thought, well, let's just talk about how we can help address that, give some takeaways. Like for me currently, it's, in my opinion, it's my legs, so
Mm-hmm.
quads and calves and hamstrings and my back. So I'm constantly focused on trying to bring those areas more into balance with the other parts of my physique while still
Mm-hmm.
keeping those parts at a high level. So it's
Right,
always
right.
it's kind of a delicate balance to say the least.
The first thing I thought of when you brought that up is I'm right-handed, so my left arm has always been weaker than my right arm,
Oh yeah.
and and I guess it's the same if you're left-handed. So I'm not really sure, but all right. So let's get to this. What are some of the approaches that folks can do to improve their weaker body parts?
Well, the things that I've found that have worked pretty well is first and foremost, you need to be focused on those body parts. And so you need to
Okay.
make them a priority in your training. So when I say focused and priority, that just basically means you give them your full attention
Hmm.
because you may enjoy doing them and you may not. Like leg and back day are kind of tough for me. So I don't
Hmm.
always enjoy them. But what I make sure I'm doing is I'm getting them a lot of attention. I'm trying different things to see if they'll activate more muscle tissue and get a different feel.
Right,
So
right.
focus training is really important. And then you can do a frequency strategy. And now these you don't want to do for too long. So, but they can help. So that would basically mean training that lagging muscle group 2 or 3 times per week. And that can
Hmm.
really challenge the central nervous system and cause some good adaptation and kind of shock the muscles. But it's not
Hmm.
something that you can do ongoing. I've done that, and then you still flatline. So, but you will
Right,
get
right.
you can get some decent results with the 2 to 3 times per week.
Okay. All right.
Another
Well,
one, yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
okay. Sure. No, no, no. I was just actually, when you say 2 or 3 times a week, are you talking on the same type of muscle groups, or do you switch things up?
Yeah, good quick clarification. Well,
Okay.
so what I'm talking about is like, training your back 3 times a week,
Okay.
which
Okay.
can be kind of rough. So
Right, right.
you have to kind of adjust your training when you're doing that, but that can help give it a lot of stimulation for a period of time to really get things. You're going to get somewhat overtrained to some degree, and then
Right.
when you take a break, then it'll heal up and you can get back at it. So what ends up happening is you may get a little weaker as you're hitting it a lot more often. So you need to kind of keep that in mind. So hopefully that kind
Okay.
of gives some people some ideas on that.
Okay.
Then another one would be like rep schemes. You have different rep schemes that can help stimulate. I talk about the ones I like, but there's other strategies you can do.
Hmm.
Supersets, going from one exercise to another. It's a
Right.
great technique. Trisets, that's doing 3 exercises without any rest. So that's a great shocking tool. Giant sets, those are pretty intense but very effective. And
Hmm.
then drop sets, just to kind of name some of the ones that I like using. But those are different ways that you can have a training approach to tackle that area that's not developing as well as you would like.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about some of these. You know, when you started, you mentioned the focus training. Yes. What's that all about?
So again, with being focused and making that muscle group a priority, you want to make sure
Hmm.
you're fresh when you train that muscle group. So like for me, I train my legs the first day of the week because I'm coming
Right.
off the weekend. I'm pretty well rested. I've got enough energy that, from eating that I'm really fresh. So,
Hmm.
but if I train my legs after doing my back and chest and then train my legs, there's a good chance I'm going to be, kind of sore and fatigued and not feeling it as well versus if I do it at the beginning of the week. So that's what I call being focus training.
Hmm.
And that way
Okay.
you're really fresh and you can just tackle that muscle with all the energy you got. Now the next day I'm going to be pretty tired, but I still have enough energy to train my chest and triceps or my back, depending on what order you're going to do them in the next day. But I can perk up enough to do that because it's a smaller muscle group in this particular case.
Gotcha.
Uh, Another thing you want to do with focus training is you don't want to miss any days of your training. So if for some reason you couldn't train a day and you feel like you're not going to get that muscle group worked as well, you
Hmm.
want to make sure that if you're going to, then that's the time where you may want to skip one of your more well-developed muscle groups to make sure you're getting
Right.
some more energy. So that's one way. Or if you were sick for a period of time, say 2 or 3 days, and you're going to get back at it, then again, I would prioritize or focus on that weak muscle group when you come back, because
Hmm.
again, you're going to have that good energy. You're going to be fresh. So that's
Gotcha.
one of the key things I find that work well for me.
Okay. Well, that's focus training. What about frequency training? How does that work?
All right. So like we talked about quick, just kind of briefly, you're going to train the muscle group a minimum 2 times a week, up
Okay.
to 3 times a week. And you can kind of alternate that kind of stuff. And what you're doing here is just hitting it more often to tax the system and to break the muscle down further.
Hmm.
And again, that's just going to depend on how much time you spend training. Again, if you're
Right.
staying in
Right.
that 45-minute window, then you should be fine. And I've done it, and you really start to feel it when you do that the third time during the week. So you
Hmm.
have to watch your recovery. So that's another key element to that. And typically, you really don't want to do that for longer than like 2 to 6 weeks. And then
Okay.
you
Okay.
got to give your body a break. And even 6 weeks, I think, to me personally, would be too long. I mean, 4 weeks would be more than enough. But I typically only do like 2 weeks to maybe three. But some people, they have a better recovery and they like it. So that would be the target. And after 6 weeks, you'll cut it back. And I think what you'll see have happen is your strength will jump back up again, and you're going to be feeling your muscles more too because you've been hitting it from so many angles.
Interesting. All right. Well, Armin, you mentioned rep schemes. Some of the folks who are either watching, listening, may not understand what those are. So tell us
Right.
what you mean by rep schemes.
So with rep schemes, you can do a shocking strategy, and I've done these, and they're very effective. So
Hmm.
what that means is you do like 50 to 100 reps on one set, and
Okay.
that is extremely grueling. Like I started with squats because I was trying to figure out how to get my
Oh.
legs to jump start. So I started with the bar, and I only got like 50 or 60 reps, and then I was toast for that set. But I was able to work up to 135 pounds for 100
Right. Right.
reps, and that's absolute torture. But the next day, I could feel every part of my leg from insertion all the way around. So
Hmm.
uh, you can't do it very often. The biggest reason is because it mentally is scary,
Right.
because
Right.
you know how hard it is to do it. But just doing those kind of rep schemes for any body part, uh, it's very challenging. Now, it's if you're doing upper body like arms or something, then I would
Hmm.
probably stay in the 50 rep range. It's just that the legs are such a large muscle group in the back. I like doing it for back too. Like I'll do pull downs for like 100 reps or rows for 100 reps. And you're not going to go real heavy. You end up having to work up to it, but it really shocks the system.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty intense. And on, with leg days are already hard enough. So you start doing
Yeah.
that, you better be ready for it, right?
Well, they're talking about the mental game because
Yeah.
there's a lot of mental game that goes with weight training because you have to deal with the uncomfortableness, the stress, the pain, the burn, that kind of thing. So another technique when it comes to rep schemes that I found works really well is if I want to do a leg press or a squat and I want to get 20 reps,
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I do them piece by piece, it's going to take a while. So what I like to do, which I think is a really good way to train, is do continuous tension. So I don't really pause at the top. I just keep moving up and down, like on a squat or leg press, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Just using that as an example.
Right,
So
right,
I'll use as heavy a weight as I can, and I'll try to squeeze out 10 reps nonstop. And by that time, I'm getting out of air. I need to get some
right.
air. So then I'll pause and do a slight static hold, just holding the weight so I get some more air. And then I'm going to try and squeeze out 5 more reps nonstop, just boom, boom, boom. And then I'm getting really fatigued. The legs are really getting loaded with blood. So then I'm going to pause again, catch my breath, reload some more oxygen. Then I'll try to squeeze out 3 more. And then, again, I'm getting close where it's getting really nerve wracking. Then I'll pause, and then I'll squeeze out 2. So by doing that,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get all 20 reps in, but I'm doing it in a kind of a paced fashion so that normally you would stop at 10 with heavy weight. Well,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I push myself a little bit more to really get the most out of it. And that's just another example of ways you can kind of force yourself to get a few more reps.
Right, right. Well, I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience who are listening to you, to hear the things that you've done, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, but some people may not understand supersets or trisets or giant sets. So, can you go into a little bit more detail so they know exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah, and these are just, again, there are other high intensity techniques to really challenge the body to deal with the stress. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what you're basically doing here is you're shocking the muscles just by jacking up the intensity. So, when I do supersets, I like to do like pre exhaust supersets. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But, like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, for my back, if I want to make it pre exhausted, I like to do pullovers. After I've warmed up, I'll do pullovers to failure, whether it's dumbbell or cables.
Right.
Then I'll go right to pull downs. And so, but because I've worked that area prior, now I'm going to further fatigue it because I'm going from one exercise to the other without any rest. Another example would be if I'm doing leg extensions. This is an isolation exercise to pre-exhaust my quads, and then I go
Mm-hmm.
right to doing squats or sissy squats or leg press. That really will challenge the system. So those are kind of a couple of examples, but that's a pre-exhaust strategy with supersets. Other supersets you could do is just go from one exercise to the next. So you
Mm-hmm.
could do like pull downs and then go to rows, or you go rows to pull downs. Those are good combinations too, because you're hitting different areas. So that's another example there.
Hmm.
Now, the trisets is basically 3 different exercises. And so, like, what I like to do there, like for back as an example, I will do, a row movement, which is, you have to typically use heavy weight and you're really focused on it. Then after no rest, I'll go right to doing pullovers to isolate my lats. And then after I get done with that going to failure, then I'll go to pull downs and
Okay.
go and do that to failure. And by that time, you've really pushed a lot of blood into the whole entire area, but you've
Mm-hmm.
also hit different aspects of the back. And that's a really challenging way to go. And I'll do a couple sets, a couple rounds of that, and then maybe do some other combinations. But I find that's really effective. And then on giant sets, that's just taking it a step further. And I really enjoy giant sets. The problem with the trisets and the giant sets is if the gym is busy, it's kind of tough. So that's
Right.
the thing.
Right.
If you don't have that, then I would do giant sets. And if you have your own gym and you got plenty of equipment, then you just want to put 4 exercises together and then do them one after the other without any rest. And you can even
Mm-hmm.
do more than that. I've done up to 8 exercises nonstop because when I have my own gym, I've trained during the day when, really nobody in there, and you
Right.
could do these kind of things. It is very demanding. I mean, it will wake up that weak body part big time. So an example of a giant set would be, I'll do a row movement, then I'll do the pull over, then I'll do the lat pull or pull ups, and then go back to another row movement at the
Mm-hmm.
end that's maybe a machine, and then take a break. So, and there's different ways you can combine these. I'm just giving them, an idea on that.
Right. Right. Armin, you mentioned drop sets. How do you go about those?
Now, drop sets are real easy. They're just hard as
Hmm.
hell though too. So when I do drop sets, I typically like to do them on machines. The biggest reason for that is because I just have to move the pin. So what you do, you pick as heavy weight as you can for your target rep scheme. So if I'm doing back, then I'm gonna try to get at least 8 to 12 reps, and then as soon as I get done, I'm gonna break, move the pin down another, depending on how much weight you're using, another 20% or like maybe say 30-pound drop, and then I'm going to lighten it up. So in other words, if I use 100 pounds, now I'm going to go to 70 pounds and I'm going to go
Right.
again. No rest, just keep going. And then when I can't do the movement properly without good form, then I'm going to rest for a second, and move the pin to the 40 pounds and then keep going. And then you'll end up getting a lot of reps
Hmm.
on the last set. But by that time, the muscle's so engorged that you're still getting plenty out of it. So these are great techniques to really tax the muscle and to really push it beyond its normal limits if you're going to do them. But machines are great for that. You can also do them with dumbbells, and you can also use barbells and other things like that for your back. As an example, I'm using the one thing about drop sets for legs is you get out of oxygen. So that one's a
Hmm.
little tougher. So I like doing
Right.
drop
Right.
sets with like a leg extension or something that doesn't get you so far out of breath. Leg curls to work the hamstrings. I like doing drop sets for that. Then calves. Those are just phenomenal exercises for those areas.
Interesting. All right. Good stuff, Armin. For those people that know about Vince Garanda and follow his techniques or have, done a lot of things that he does, what about the things that Vince have done, the 6x6, 8x8, or 10x10?
Yeah, those are great regimens as well. So you're going to pick a weight that, normally like on a 6x6, you're going to pick a weight you'd probably get 10 to 12 reps with. Okay.
Okay.
But you would kind of go to failure on that. And so you're going to stick with that weight and you're going to go 6 reps and you're going to rest. Now, the rest periods for events would be 15 to 30 seconds, typically no more than that. And then you go again. So it's kind of like a cluster set in a way, is another thing it could be called. But
Okay.
you're going to do 6 sets of that particular exercise for 6 reps. So 6 sets of 6 is how that works. Very effective. You can use really heavy weight, but also going to tax the system. It's a great
Hmm.
system. The 8x8, that's even more challenging. Great program there. And then you pick the exercise that you're weak on. And then the 10x10 is just taking it to a whole nother level. And
Oh,
that's
I
what
bet.
Vince
Yeah.
Vince would do some of that with his movie star actors. If he felt like they had a really weak muscle group, he would actually have them do a 10x10 for that particular muscle group, but just one exercise. And then the next time he would train him, he'd have him do a different exercise. So it's
Hmm.
good to change up those exercises when you're doing a 6x6, 8x8, 10x10. You want to pick an area that you're trying to bring up and develop better.
Hmm. Right. Right. Okay. So after all this hard work, you're going to want some good recovery. How do you approach recovery with all of this, Armin?
So one way to kind of gauge recovery is if you're being able to get stronger each training session. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot, but that just means you've gotten good recovery. So the way I
Hmm.
like to do it is I like to see how many reps I got with that particular exercise the last time, and then see if I can push it a little bit more, maybe squeeze out another rep or two. So
Hmm.
like for example on a 6x6, in that last set, you want to barely be able to get 6 reps on that last set. So what you're going to notice is around set number 4, number 5 is you're barely getting 6. Then when you
Right.
go to
Right.
set number 6, you're just squeezing it out. So same type of concept. So next time you're going to do that particular exercise in that training, you want to feel even stronger so that, okay, you didn't feel as bad when you got to that 5th set. And then when you got to the 6th set, you could actually do even more than 6 reps. That just means
Hmm.
your strength is jumped. And that's with short rest intervals. So that's what I really like to do is to gauge my recovery based on that. So I'm either going to get additional reps, or once I reach my rep threshold, I'm going to add weight and stay heavier. And I don't go
Hmm.
back down. I'm going to stick with that weight. I'm not going to go back down. So, and then when it comes to recovery, key things to be really aware of outside of your nutrition is your sleep. Sleep is critical because that's when all the repair work's being done. So if you have the capacity to track your REM and deep sleep, I would do that. You could do that now with some of the new technology. I use an Aura ring for that to track my deep sleep and my REM sleep, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of gives me a good idea. And I can tell a difference when I get good readings. I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
good, and I'm good and strong when I go in. So that's another
Hmm.
technique to do there.
Interesting. Interesting. An aura ring. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, all those sound like some great ideas, Armin. Is there anything else that our listeners or the folks actually watching should keep in mind?
Yeah, to get the best results, like Vince would say, it's 85% nutrition. So nutrition and supplementation, you got to do that along with your sleep so that you get that weak body part, the right amount of nutrition so it can adapt and get stronger and bigger the way you want to. So, when it comes to nutrition, there's different
Mm-hmm.
strategies. Vince has a lot of different ones. I like to do a carb cycling strategy just because I have, time my nutritional intake and it tends to work well for me. But the key thing is make sure you get plenty of protein and fats. That's what builds muscle, pure and simple. For our supplementation, good multivitamin, fish oil, protein powder. Uh, depending on beta alanine is a good help as far as
Mm-hmm.
a supplement to take. Beef liver capsules, amino acids, those can all help with improving the recuperation recovery process. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to juggle what you feel will work for you, or get with somebody that's got some experience in it. Uh, but that will help make sure you're getting that weak body part up to where you want it. As an example.
A lot of great information, Armin. And you know what? If you're looking for that extra protein, I'll tell you what, the milk and egg protein that NSP
Yeah.
offers is phenomenal. And
Yep.
hey, Armin, I took your advice. I added a little half and half with water. I'm dropping in anywhere from 2 to 4 eggs in the morning, along
Hmm.
with about a banana. I throw that in there, put my protein powder, and not only is it thicker, but it's a lot more filling. And I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like I ate a full breakfast, man. I don't eat till like around 1 o'clock now.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not even hungry, sometimes I wait longer. So that worked out great. So appreciate that advice. It was great stuff.
It works.
And yes, yes. All right. So don't forget to check out nspnutrition.com. We've got a lot of new workout gear on the website, and it's quality workout gear. So check it out.
Yeah, it
But
is.
Arm and I, we've got another part of the show here for you. So stand by for that, and Armin and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
And I'm Frank Mills. And let's start with, does being in a calorie deficit mean you are losing only body fat? A lot of people want to lose that body fat. And this topic, Armin, sounds a little controversial, maybe. So is that the case?
There'll be a lot of opinions on this, I'm sure.
Right, right,
So, but yeah, well, I've done calorie deficit a lot of different ways. And
right.
when you start doing research on how all the nutrition works and how insulin works and things like that, calories in and calories out doesn't mean you're burning all body fat. And if you
Right,
think
right.
that, then I suggest you do some more research because that's not how it works.
Right, right, right. So Armin, if someone is in a calorie deficit, they may or may not be burning fat, right?
Yeah. Now, one of the key factors on this, and there'll maybe some debate on this, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
fact. If your insulin is up because you're eating carbohydrates throughout the day, like in the breakfast or whatever,
Right,
uh, you're not going to burn any body fat because it just doesn't happen that way.
mm-hmm.
Fat doesn't kick in when insulin's working because insulin is using the carbs and the sugars for your day-to-day energy. So what that means is you've got to switch out how you burn energy if you truly want to burn body fat through a calorie deficit. And there's the big change up. And
Right,
then
right.
there's certain things you got to do when you switch over to make it work for you long term. But yeah, people don't understand. And here's what happens. Okay. I'll give you an example. When you go to bed and that insulin level drops, the body is going to go into a fat burning zone because the hormones secrete and they need cholesterol to rebuild cells. So you're burning fat throughout the night because insulin's dropped. That's the energy system that the body wants to use to help rebuild cells, help the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
When you wake up, that process is still going on. So you're still going to be burning fat when you wake up. Now, if you do the typical American diet and you're going to have a bowl of cereal or you're going to have a bunch of carbs, oatmeal, which everybody's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people think that you got to have oatmeal in the morning with some eggs, etc. As soon as you get 5 grams or more of carbohydrates at that point, insulin has to come up to process the carbohydrates. So once that happens, you officially shut off the fat burning process because insulin's working to process your carbohydrates, and that's what you're going to use for the quick energy that the body's going to do. So when you minimize your carbohydrate intake throughout the day, you're going to continue to burn fat. So if you're in a calorie deficit and you're in a calorie deficit, now you're going to be burning more fat than anything else. Versus if you have the insulin floating around, what can happen is once you're running low on glucose,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's stored in the muscles, then the insulin can cause you to go into gluconeogenesis. And when that happens, that's going to cause you to convert the muscle tissue to amino acids to glucose. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
actually burning muscle tissue. Not a good thing. And
Right.
we're gonna have elaborate more on that as well.
Okay. So here's the big question. If you're not burning fat, I mean, then what are you losing if you're not burning fat?
So when you go into calorie deficit, the body's going through the processes of dealing with the energy. And so you're going to lose water weight because that's going to get flush. But that goes
Mm-hmm.
for any kind of diet you're doing. You're going to have some water weight.
Okay.
But typically what you're burning is this excess carbs. So you're going to burn those excess carbs off, which that's okay, good. But you have to burn those off enough to cause the insulin to come down and stay down. But say it's 4 hours into it or 5 hours
Right.
into it, you're probably going to be hungry. You're going to need some more food for energy, right? So the insulin's going to stay elevated. So that's what happens. Insulin keeps getting in the way. And what people need to realize is insulin is a fat storage hormone.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're eating carbohydrates, especially too many of them, and your muscles and liver are full of glucose, which is what it converts to,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no place for those carbs and sugars to go because the muscles and the liver are full. So insulin says, okay, no problem. We're going to stick them here in the fat cell. We'll come back get them later if we ever need them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. So you're
Wow.
burning muscle tissue, you're dropping water, and you're burning excess
Mm-hmm.
carbohydrates. You're not really burning much fat, if anything.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, Arman, how does insulin affect fat loss then?
So when you keep the insulin down, the good news is the body has to convert over to how it wants to use energy. So that's
Mm-hmm.
when it starts using ketones, which are secreted from the fat cells, and that's what you're going to use for energy, which is a
Okay.
great thing because now you're going to start using that, and so you're going to be burning it all day long. And if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose some body fat, which is great. And you'll notice that
Mm-hmm.
because your skin gets tighter, you feel tighter in your abdominals. There's great side effects to that. But that's what Vince knew. Vince knew if you want to lose body fat, you got to get
Mm-hmm.
insulin out of the way, and that's why he had a zero. He did a zero carb diet. So once you got depleted, then every 3 or 4 days he'd have you do a carb load meal, just one
Mm-hmm.
carb load meal, because he wants you
Okay.
to burn as much fat as possible. So that's when insulin would only come in, is when he'd have you do that one carb meal, and he used high glycemic carbs, which was brilliant because that
Mm-hmm.
jacked up the insulin, which helps to push the nutrients into the cells really rapidly to restore the muscles in the liver. And then the insulin drops right back down. You're back to fat burning.
Gotcha. Is this why Vince was adamant about minimal carbs for getting lean?
Exactly. So, again, like we talked about, Vince knew you had to be in a calorie deficit, but
Mm-hmm.
if you got insulin in the way, that wasn't going to happen. And he figured all this out a long time ago. But he also would say this is not a long-term diet. This is not a diet you're going to stay on the rest of your life. So that's another thing we need to make sure we're highlighting. But if you want to lose body fat and you're in a calorie deficit, this will work. It'll get you the best results. but he also knew that
Right.
you did have to do some carbohydrates along the way because
Hmm.
you do need carbohydrates for energy.
Well, Armin, there's a lot of nutrition gurus out there, and all they talk about is calories. Why do they do that?
Well, that's because of how they're schooled, it'd be my opinion. I mean, I felt the same way. I was through
Hmm.
all this, calories in, calories out. But when I started doing the calories in, calories out, I felt and saw the muscle loss, which was very frustrating. And I don't recommend it to anybody. But yes, you'll lose weight. That's why they always talk about weight loss. It's not called fat loss, it's called weight loss because that's the safe term to use. And
Hmm.
that's really the huge differentiator here. When you're talking about losing body fat, which is a more longer term strategy, versus weight loss, which is temporary because you're losing water weight, you're losing excess carbohydrates, and then you maybe burn some muscle tissue, but you did drop some
Right.
weight. So
Right.
the assumption is, oh, I'm burning fat. Well, no, that's not how it works. And anybody wants to debate that, bring it on. So,
Bring it on.
I've
Well,
been through I have to
yeah.
deal with this with people all the time. And it's really a joke when they act like it's all about calories in, calories out. You do have to
Well,
have a calorie
yeah.
balance. I get that. So go ahead.
Well, I've heard you say, Armin, many times, if you have 1,000 calories of organic grass-fed beef and 1,000 calories of potato chips, which one's better for you, right? So
Exactly.
it can't be calories in, calories out when it comes to eating food in that differentiator. I mean, it just doesn't add up that way. So there's a lot of diets out there. Is keto the way to go then? What do you think?
Well, that's a whole nother factor. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I feel nutrient timing is the best way to go, and that's why I like carb cycling. Um, you know, and again, with that being said, when Vince did his maximum definition diet and then his steak and eggs diet, that was only for a period of time to get really lean. That could be from uh, you know typically 6 weeks to 12 weeks, and then no more. He doesn't want you staying on that because you're going to deplete the body of other nutrients over time,
Mm-hmm.
and it affects your gut microbiome because you need to
Right.
have some
Right.
other carbohydrates to help keep that functioning well.
Mm-hmm.
So he was way ahead of his time on it. But again, this is not something you want to do long term. But if you're in a calorie deficit and you're doing it this way, you'll get really good results.
So if the keto isn't the way to go, you're actually saying that carb cycling is the way to go for long-term results and good fat loss, right?
That's my opinion based on my
Okay.
experience. So what
Mm-hmm.
that means is I do low carb throughout the day. And then after I train, I'm going to have a few carbohydrates high glycemic carbohydrates to jump my insulin up to help push the nutrients into the cells. Then it's
Mm-hmm.
going to drop right back down. And then now I train in the morning. So I only have about 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrate to do this process with because that's all I need. And then the insulin drops right back down. So then I'm back to fat burning. But on my last meal in the evening, if I'm going to be training real hard the next day, I'll carb load in the evening to get another insulin spike, which will help jack up my serotonin levels because I'll get
Mm-hmm.
more carbohydrates then, which converts to melatonin and give me a really good night's sleep. But sometimes I may not have any additional carbohydrates because I'm trying to lean out more. This is the easiest way I've found to maintain a six pack all year round and stay really
Mm-hmm.
in really good condition and have great strength. So that's my kind of go-to approach.
And you're talking through Christmas, through birthday parties, through
Oh yeah,
celebrations, through all
yeah.
that. You've done it. You've been there, done that, right?
Well, I enjoy myself during Christmas and Thanksgiving and whatever. I have a good
Right.
time. I don't sweat it because all year round it's being maintained with what I do. So,
Right.
and I don't
Right.
I'm no saint with certain foods, but I don't like processed food. I avoid
Right.
that like the
Right.
plague. But I'm gonna have a nice slice of cheesecake or carrot cake or cobbler or some pasta if I want to, and
Right.
then
Right.
breads and things because I'm nutrient timing when I'm going to use it, so I work it to my favor.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So just to confirm, you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat, but do it
Correct.
in a way that it doesn't burn muscle.
Correct.
Okay.
So what people need to understand is when you're in a calorie deficit and you have elevated insulin, you're subject to potentially losing muscle tissue because it gets converted over when you get
Mm-hmm.
low on your glucose levels.
Right, right.
That's the thing about, and that's what Vince learned, when you have fats spare muscle because you never really run out of fat. So you don't need to tap into your muscle stores to converting energy to glucose. You
Mm-hmm.
still need to have some periodic reloads of glucose to the muscles, but that's when he
Mm-hmm.
had you take in some carbs every 3 or 4 days to help restore it. And that helped keep your pump up, help keep your energy up. And he nailed it on the head. He understood how insulin worked.
Well, some great information, Arman. As we wrap this up, any other final thoughts that you want to add here to the end of the segment?
Yeah, in my opinion, you really need to question what you read and see in the media. I mean, I know I'm in the media as well, but just doing calories in and calories out in a deficit, uh, it causes a lot of confusion. Yeah, you will lose some weight, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's what you're actually looking to do. I don't want to lose muscle weight. It's too hard to put on. So
Right,
my
right.
focus is to stay focused. My focus is to be with how do I lose body fat and keep it off, and that way I can maintain the look I want and stay healthy. Big difference there.
Absolutely. Well, Arman, as always, great information. Thanks so much, man.
Oh, no problem. And look forward to it again next week. Again, guys, if you have ideas or thoughts or things, other topics, or have questions about this one, because it's a kind of a hot one, uh, let us know, and we can answer this for you. And we appreciate you following and watching. So share with other people that you feel would benefit from it as well.
Absolutely. And if you want to integrate yourself into the show, you want to offer some advice, some input, you have a topic or suggestion, as Arman said, you can email the show, support@nspnutrition.com. We will get that info. And, who knows, your topic could be the next one for next week's
Yeah.
show. Also, right there on YouTube, leave a comment. Arman goes on there and takes a look. He'll reply to you right there on YouTube, right, Arman?
Yeah, I'm not always super quick, but I do get to it. So hang tough.
All right. Well, don't forget to check out nspnutrition.com for your supplement order for this
Yeah.
week. And thanks again for joining us. And check back next week for a new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.